Hi guys. That's Rachel. That's Rachel. I can never remember which way to point.
See, and I'd be like, this is Stacy. Because in my view, you're right here.
Yeah, so here's a little, fun fact, guys. I use Ecamm. I get this question actually a lot. I use Ecamm Live, which is only available for Macs, for my live streaming. And that actually pulls in the guest via Skype. And so I'm connected right now with Rachel via Skype, and we've pulled her in. What's cool, though, is Ecamm is what lets me do things like this fun timer thing down here and the logo. That's what that's called. And when I, pull your comments and stuff up,
Logo.
That's all some stuff I can do through Ecamm. So if this is something that you're looking at, I like Ecamm for Mac. There's a tutorial on how to use it inside of Hit the Mic Backstage. Just a fun fact.
I've watched it.
And it's awesome. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Rachel's allergic to me.
Apparently.
Which is funny because, we spent a lot of time together and you were in no way sneezing then, so.
Nope, I'm virtually allergic to you.
That's it.
Yeah, it's when I'm so far away from you that my body is, physically sad, so it just starts sneezing. Yeah.
I was thinking maybe the gin that we drank when together helped.
Maybe that a little bit too.
That I use, that's medicinal in my mind, so we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so as you guys are joining us, as you know, if you've been here before, this is the pre-party. The party before the party.
Pre-party.
That is a 50 Cent song that I'm not going to go into right now. So, if you are joining us right now, which you are because you heard me say that, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from because we want to know.
We really want to know.
I am still in Phoenix for a couple more weeks, and then I go back to Orange County. You're in Northern California.
I am. We're in the East Bay right now. Our whole summer is super nomadic, which is very exciting.
Like this is something we should talk about in the pre-show because it's not super relevant for the actual show, but it's something that will be really interesting to you guys because I know a lot of you really, and I know this because we had a guest on the podcast years ago that remains one of our most popular episodes talking about building a business you can take on the road. And so that's really what you guys have done. You guys are sort of testing out this whole nomad thing for 4 months, right?
Yeah, it's almost 4. It's 3.5-ish.
Right. So you started in Denver.
So we're living in Denver. Now we're in the East Bay in Northern California.
For those of you who are not also, I'm in California too, so I'm yeah.
You're of course.
Nebraska does not know what that means.
Right, exactly. We're in, we're about 30, 40 minutes-ish from San Francisco, just a little east. And then for July and August, we'll be in Orange County near Miss Beautiful over here. Wait, which way are you to me?
Trips to Disneyland, so pay attention to my Instagram stories.
Are you on this side of me?
I'm the other way. Right there. That's me.
Okay. I'll be in Orange County with this one.
Yay!
And then the beginning of September, we go back up to Lake Tahoe for an event for Kyle's family. Cool. And then in September, we move to Manhattan for a year.
Yay! I was actually talking about you the other day to somebody, and I was like, yeah, they're moving to New York. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, you guys should talk. So I'll tell you about that later. I'm
excited.
Super fun fact. Shout out to Sharon Newman, who I was on a show with. I was actually on her show. In case you guys need more fun live shows to watch on Thursdays, Tara does one, and I was on it last week, basically about stuff entrepreneurs no longer give a shit about. And I ranted for, I think, a good 40 minutes about things I no longer give a shit about. It's legit. It's solid gold, people. Solid gold. So look up the Bold Leadership Revolution. That's the name of the Facebook page. Go watch it. It's super funsies. She's had lots of great guests on besides me, but you should definitely watch mine first because, hello.
Obviously.
So we've got a few minutes left before the show starts. I would love to hear where you guys are watching from. I see several of you watching and not commenting, and I will call you out.
She will too.
I know. I can see things, people. So
she
I'm
knows
super
things.
Excited. In case this is the first time you've ever joined us, because I know, Rachel, you shared this with your audience, and they may not know who the hell I am.
They're like, who's this?
I know. They're like, because is this? I am the Stacey Harris, social media strategist and trainer. I am the host of this year's show, Hit the Mic TV Live. We do this every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. If you would like our Facebook bot, Betty, to remind you when it goes live every week, type show in the comments, and Betty will remind you next Thursday that we're live, so that you don't miss the fun that is this show. Hi,
Betty,
Ann.
Betty told me that you were going live with me.
Yeah.
It was very exciting. I was like, thanks, Betty.
She is on top of it. She knows her stuff. So yeah. Ann is joining us. I happen to know Ann is from Phoenix. Thanks for watching, Ann.
Hi, Ann.
I've known Ann for a long time. Katie is watching us from Buffalo, New York. I don't know why I always assume Buffalo, New York is cold. I've never actually been to Buffalo. My only exposure to Buffalo is movies, and I just feel like it snows there year-round. I'm assuming it's not currently cold in Buffalo, New York.
It's just the tundra.
To correct my weather.
It's like an Arctic tundra.
I know. I don't know why I assume it's Antarctica, but I do. Because I am from the Southwest United States. I grew up in Phoenix. I live in Orange County. I've never lived places where there's snow. I don't know what to do with that. We talked about this last week with your husband.
You've never lived places where there's like weather. As someone who spent 15 years in Orange County, I can attest, like...
Yeah. I have full on never lived anywhere with seasons.
Yeah.
In Orange County, we have June gloom and then the rest of the year. And then in Phoenix, we have why everyone lives here and then don't go outside. Those are the two. So Katie has brought in a weather report. It's currently in the 70s. In fact, not snowing in Buffalo. Thank you, Katie.
It's in the 70s in Buffalo?
It's in the 70s. She also says it's cold most of the year, all except 4 months.
Ooh.
So I'm fairly close. I feel like that's close enough for me to call it as like legit.
Pretty much what you said,
tundra.
Yeah.
Frozen tundra. I feel the same way about Canada. I've never been there either. I feel like it's also a frozen tundra. It's just me.
I've been to Canada. There's definitely parts that are more frozen tundra-esque.
Well, the further north you go, certainly, because then you ran into Santa.
Yeah, basically.
So,
Katie close. It's basically the Arctic tundra.
Ann's like Phoenix is hot and not so hot. That's pretty much it. That's the vastness of your Gulf weather. Too hot to go outside. It's pretty much that's the variety of our seasons. So yeah. And now I live in Orange County where it's like June gloom, spring.
It's basically spring all the time.
Yeah. And you know what? I love it. And I find it to be delightful. I don't need seasons. I drive an hour and a half and I can go to Big Bear or somewhere snowy. And then you know what happens? I leave that snow there and I go home. I don't shovel it ever.
No, you don't.
Ann says, get me out of here. And you're free to move. I happen to know that you have in no way been imprisoned here. You're free to go.
Take that responsibility.
Oh, all right. So I'm really excited today because we're going to start off talking a little bit about what we talked about last week with Kyle about working with your significant other. I thought it would be fun to touch on this before we got too far away from it. If for no other reason than we get to talk to both parts of a couple working together. And Charles was unwilling to come on and allow me to abuse him in front of you guys. So we had to abuse Kyle and Rachel instead.
We volunteered. We volunteered.
Yeah. They were voluntold that they would be on the show. That's the joy of knowing me so well, is you're voluntold things. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about those of you who maybe are involved with people who are not entrepreneurs. And I think this is actually going to be a really, really good conversation, not just in relationships, but I ran into this a lot with my extended family. My grandmother, my cousins, friends who I'd known for a long time. When you're trying to explain to them your life and the things that happen and you have unique problems and thoughts about your day when you are an entrepreneur, maybe work from home, and they sort of assume that they can just come to your house anytime or you're constantly available to meet their cable guy and or watch their children. All of these are real life examples. And so I want to talk a little bit about having these conversations because I know you have coming up a really good resource to sort of take the next step. So I thought I would soak up some of that knowledge before we even got into that.
I love that. I love it. And honestly, like I have had it's funny you say those examples because I'm like, oh yeah, no, I've had the exact conversations with family, friends.
It's so funny, right? Because people just assume like, oh, you're home, you can do. I'm like, no, I probably work harder than you do all day. Like, I'm not saying it's a comparison, but there's a possibility that I'm actually working. I'm on Facebook actually doing stuff. Like,
right. Like 100%.
So
100%.
We're gonna talk about that. It's 2:00 though. Welcome to the show officially for those of you who are just joining us. I love ya. I'm glad you're here. I, again, am the Stacey Harris, social media strategist and trainer. I work with online entrepreneurs to help them get through the douchebaggery and grossness of social media and start actually seeing results and growing their email lists and doing all sorts of fun things like that. And so I'm really excited. I'm joined today by Rachel Wright, co-founder of Wright Wellness Center. She and her husband co-founded Wright Wellness Center 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You may recognize the name Kyle because that was our guest last week. It's in fact the same person.
It's my husband.
I brought you guys the total Wright Wellness package. You're welcome. So I'm really excited. Before we get too far into the show, I want to take a minute and have you kind of tell everybody your background because Kyle's is different, and we talked a little bit about that last week. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you kind of moved into Wright Wellness Center.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. You know, I love you to freaking piece it. Can I curse on here? Is that okay?
Swear. It's okay.
Okay, fantastic.
If you have children, stop listening now. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, you can mute now. I'm so fucking excited to be here. You know how much I love you. So thank you for having us. So I am Rachel Wright. I am a licensed marriage family therapist in California and Colorado. And I had a really wonderful private practice in San Francisco for many years. Loved the work that I was doing, but started getting very frustrated. And my frustration was not around necessarily the work that I was doing, but rather the fact that so many couples were my everything. Most of my clients were couples. They were coming in and they all needed the same thing. Mm-hmm. They didn't know how to communicate. And whether the issue was around sex, whether the issue was around anxiety or another mental health thing, it all came down to these foundational skills of we don't know how to have a conversation when it's not like, what do you want for dinner? Which in some cases was still really hard to have.
Totally.
So I would come home to my then boyfriend, Kyle, now my husband, and I started kind of complaining to him. Like, these people are coming in, I want to help them, but they don't need therapy. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no trauma in their past. They're not healing from something big. They may have a little anxiety, a little depression, but not diagnosable, nothing clinical. And they all need support and help with the same thing. And I feel like I'm teaching more like I'm doing therapy. Mm-hmm. And so Kyle was like, well, why don't you just create something to give to them and then they can learn these skills and then come back in and then you can start working with them. So I did. We put together, Kyle helped me because this was, and looking back, it's really easy to see how the dots were all connecting.
Yeah.
Kyle helped me put together a packet in more layman's terms than I was used to using of how
Which is key when you're shifting from therapy to teaching.
Yes. So he's my filter system. Like, I read the scientific journals and then it filters through me and then him and then it's like food and car metaphors at the end.
I like this. You have this translation system set up.
Exactly. So I started giving these packets to my couple clients and what started happening is they just stopped coming in.
Which is good.
Which is great. But also not great because then all of a sudden I had no clients. But I was
a long-term growth strategy, so.
Exactly. So that is literally what started the concept for Wright Wellness Center. So we really realized that there was this gaping hole between, going on Amazon or going to Barnes and Noble or whatever, buying a book and then going to therapy. and that so many people don't need therapy, but they definitely need more than buying a book because we don't get any education around how to navigate sex, relationships, mental health. So we are basically on a mission to fill that gap. And that's how we ended up here. So I'm like the total know-it-all, like academic, nerdy one out of the two of us. And Kyle's like, I hate school. And why do you sit in the front row? And
which, if you watched last week's episode, you heard that story from him talking about the front row. If you've not yet watched it, watch last week's episode with Kyle. And he will talk about the origins of their relationship, which points directly to the front row story.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we did not like
hilarious.
Each other. Yeah, not at all.
I love that you guys hated each other because there's this occasionally there's this idea that like, oh, well, they're just perfect and that's why it works. No, us being in a good place is proof that what we're teaching you works, not that we're magical creatures.
100%. And that's actually like the biggest misconception that I have to bust, because I will get calls from people like, oh, well, I don't have a relationship like you and Kyle. You guys are like unicorns. And I'm like, I mean, I wish I could say I'm a unicorn because that would be a very fun existence. But no, we're not. We're just two people who turned a fling into a really successful long-term relationship using the same exact tools that we teach people.
I will say you're a little unicorn-like because you're doing the work. And I think that for me, in just solely my opinion and experience of other people, doing the work versus opting out is rarer and rarer as time goes by.
And that's partially due, I agree with you, it's partially due to the giant stigma around therapy and having therapy be really the only place where we think to go to do this type of work. And so that's another thing we want to break is that stigma around getting help for your relationship and really turning it into more preventative care, like how we take our cars in for oil changes or how we, go to the dentist every 6 months. It's not because we have cavities. It's because we don't want to get cavities.
Totally.
And so instead of only coming in when there's shit happening, we want to have,
Well, I think, and I talked about this last week, I love that you're bridging the gap because I do feel like sometimes for the people I've known who've entered therapy, it's been because like this was their last ditch effort to avoid divorce court. And at that point, it's too late. Like the damage may have been done.
Beautiful.
Like I was saying though, I feel like sometimes that's that moment where it's like, okay, it's too late. Like the damage has been done.
Totally. And that's also what I found too, is that by the time, most couples decide like, okay, let's go to therapy, one person's already checked out. And it's so painful to watch because usually one of the people in the relationship is like, no, let's do it. Let's do the work. And one person kind of is already mentally, emotionally, physically like out the door.
Right. And that's one person can't do the work. So I want to jump in and I want to talk just kind of briefly end capping our conversation with Kyle last week. From your perspective, bringing him into this, I mean, you guys really started this together, but bringing someone into sort of your, for lack of a better word here, domain, your sort of expertise, what was sort of your big lesson now that you guys are a couple years in that either like you're really glad you did a certain way, like maybe talking to each other or something, or you wished maybe you had done a little differently? What was sort of something that you took away from that evolution?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I think so 2 things. One of the things I'm really glad we did was we stayed really consistent practicing what we preach. So our very first like opt-in or lead magnet or whatever you want to call it was our family meeting. And that was something that Kyle and I created together for us because we did them every week. And that is the only thing that kept us sane. We would check in on how we were feeling, what was going on. So it was like this combination of how's the relationship, how's work, how's this, like what are we eating for dinner on Tuesday, kind of like a State of the Union type situation.
Totally.
And I am so grateful that we kept doing that because otherwise it would have been really easy for us to either start kind of drifting in a way, like doing our own things in the business, or being too on top of each other and then like just butting heads.
Yeah.
So that's something that I loved.
That was really big for us too, because it allowed us to not get too insulated in like, because there is a certain amount of like occasional frustration, or like things aren't like, a lot of it is like you don't know until you experience it, kind of how things are going to feel and how things are going to go and where the ebb and flow is. So that was really big for us too. So I'm really glad you highlighted that, because I feel like talking to each other and really scheduling before there's a problem, a time for you to connect and have those conversations is hugely valuable in not getting sort of too far away from each other. Cause and on top of each other, especially like when we first started, we both had home offices. We were crazy and tried to share an office for like a month, and I almost murdered him. Cause I was like, dude, I can't look at your face anymore. I love you. I have to stop looking at you now.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So I'm glad you brought that up. What was number 2?
So the second thing would be something that I would do differently.
Okay.
And that would be not letting Kyle get in his own way as much. So
that's hard though.
It's really hard. It's really hard. And I wish that I would have been a little bit more, no, you can. Like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Instead of kind of I allowed him to figure it out on his own, which is in general a really great thing. But I think that I could have been a bit more direct with like, you're not seeing all of your capabilities. Let's bring them out. So if I could go back, I would change that. But overall, like, no, it was good.
And I think there's always, and we talked about this last week, there's always sort of that figuring it out, that working through it. And that's why those check-ins are so valuable, because I honestly, and Kyle mentioned this, he had no idea kind of where he fit in at the beginning. When I started my business, there's no way I could have imagined what my business looks like now. It started as literally just a way for me to make my brain work. And like, oh, we'll make a little extra money for vacations and, you know, work on Colin's college fund. That's not what it is now. It's a little different now, but I couldn't have seen what was possible. And so I don't think there's any way to predict all of the things you'll have to navigate. And that's why I love those conversations. But I agree with you. That's something that I am actively trying to do a better job of. Not even just with Charles, but like with the team in general. They're like, well, let's look at the whole thing. How can we make XYZ work? Or how can we sort of take a step back and look at this, for lack of a better word, kind of coldly and systematically, instead of so filled with the feelings. You know how I feel about the feelings?
You know, I do. And I love the feelings. I
know. That's why we work so well. You can have all the feelings for both of us.
Exactly.
I'll be over here totally feelingless.
Yeah, right.
That'd be ideal for me.
I help hold your feelings. It's like, here's Stacy's feelings.
You can borrow my feelings. Yeah. I'm good.
I don't need any more.
I am filled up with feelings. Cool. All right. So that kind of wraps up our conversation around working with a significant other. If you have questions about working with a significant other, I would suggest talking to Kyle and Rachel, not me. They have one-on-one clients. Talk to them. I can tell you what I did. They can tell you how to actually, not kill each other.
We work with a lot of couples, not just entrepreneurs. Couples are. Do we have any couples where they're both entrepreneurs? Maybe maybe one or two, but most either one is, or they're both in traditional 9-to-5s or work for other people.
So that's really interesting. Let's shift into that. Because again, we kind of had this conversation last week for those of you who are interested in working together or who are working together and are currently feeling like maybe you might kill each other. I don't know why that's my extreme. At that point, maybe therapy is a good idea.
Yes, it is.
I digress. For those of you who are working in your business, and maybe you have a spouse who is full-time doing something else, maybe they're an entrepreneur, but they have their own thing. Primarily, I'm really looking for the conversation around, like, when they are not super involved in the unique world that is working for yourself, working from a home office. You know, I and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not. Charles never watches these, so this is in no way me stepping up. I'm just being honest, guys. He does not consume my content. He hears enough of me yapping. He doesn't also need to listen to the pre-recorded content. I was super, super ridiculously, annoyingly, obnoxiously lucky, unicorn-like, in the sense that I have the world's most supportive husband. He will listen to me, even before he started working for me, ramble on about business stuff, nod his head like he knew what I was talking about or who I was talking about, and just, because he knows that's how I process. And I've met a lot of people who do not have that kind of support system from their partner. Either they're uninterested, or they don't care, or they're actively like, why are you doing this? And so I want to talk a little bit about broaching a conversation around, like, and I've been going through your 3-day challenge, and so I'm probably going to end up pulling random things out of the videos you've been doing in there. But, you know, when you say such and such, da-da-da-da, you know, how do we start those conversations where we're in a situation where what they're saying is making us feel super small, like we're just inciting all of the noise we already have going on in our head? Like, what the hell are we doing? So how do we start those conversations? Just a small question to start with.
I know, yeah, just totally, like, easy fix. Just do this, it's fine. Okay, bye, I'm out.
Check a box, you're good.
Right? You know, the most important thing with those conversations is the acknowledgement that if you're, you know, balls deep, for lack of a better expression, into the entrepreneurial world and your partner is not, they have zero idea of what's going on unless you share it with them. So making sure that those conversations start with, instead of, you're not supporting me, you don't care about what I'm doing, because immediately then the person's like, boom, defensive.
Right.
Like, why are you attacking me? I'm trying to understand. And they don't know any better. Like, they have no other point of reference. One of my entrepreneurial couple clients, she's an entrepreneur and he is not. And their big fight was, why are you constantly on your phone? When we're watching on your phone. When we're taking a walk, you grab your phone. When we do this, you're on your phone. And all she kept saying was, it's for my business. It's for my business. It's for my business. And he was feeling really neglected. That coming out of this conversation that we helped them have was, he said, Matt, I feel neglected when you're on your phone. What I would like for you to do is leave your phone at home when we go out. How does that sound? And when she explained that for every Instagram post, everything she was interacting, she was bringing X amount of money or these many people, he was like, oh, that's what you're doing on your phone?
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's just that we're not even communicating the what or the why of what's going on. So really being, you know, coming to, if you're the entrepreneur, going to your partner and saying, hey, honey, you know, I wanted to have a conversation with you because I realized that maybe you don't know all of the things I'm doing, and I really want to share with you what's going on. Would you be interested in that?
Totally.
And allowing them to say yes or no.
Yeah, and I love that because, first of all, and this has been my big takeaway in the challenge, and I'm assuming you're going to talk about this on the masterclass next week too, but this idea of taking responsibility for the way I'm going to talk about feeling, Sarah. You ready? Prepare yourself. How I feel, instead of being like, what you did resulted in this. It's like, no, I feel this way. I'm owning that. That's my thing. Here's how I want to sort of evolve that feeling into something different.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I love that.
Because so often we just point and say, I don't like this. Right. I don't like how that made me feel. And that person sitting there like, I can make you feel things? Like, what do you mean? All I said was, leave your phone at home. How does that make you feel anything? But from the person receiving it, it can be a multitude of things. So yeah, that radical responsibility.
Well, and with that example specifically, that I've totally run into, by the way. For me, it was about finding the happy medium. They're like, okay, here's the result of me being on my phone. This is literally resulting in your truck payment or your, our vacation next month or whatever. But also, and this is something we have now, like my phone it comes with us, but it doesn't come out of my bag when we go on date night.
Yep.
Because
that's a great example. That's a fantastic example. Yes.
I think that's what I think is so valuable in this communication is it's not, and maybe that's where, starting with that I feel this way, it's saying, like, how do we find a way where we both feel good? Not, you need to fix something so I feel better.
Totally. And that's where the words compromise and sacrifice start to get interchanged.
I wanted you to talk about this because you talked about it on the live call today, and I want you to talk about it here because it was like, because I am somebody who likes to win, not compromise. And so this is something that I have, for our 10 years of marriage, have actively worked on. Because winning may not result in me staying married. I would like to be married to him more than I would like to win, which is an important distinction to make as a human. And so 100%. I really want you to talk about this difference between sacrifice and compromise, because I, for a long time, bundled them in my head. Like, compromise was losing.
Oh, totally. And I think you're not alone in that at all. Well, I would love anybody watching, if you have interchanged those words, like, let us know. Totally. Because they definitely get interchanged. Because what do we hear? Oh, there's sacrifice in marriage. Mm-hmm. There's not. And sacrifice something that you value or literally not getting it. Just gone. Very black and white. Like, you have it or you don't. Sacrifice. Like, I am giving up, like, so I'm Jewish, so this might be incorrect, so correct me if I'm wrong. But, like, for Lent, if you give something up for Lent,
yes,
it's like you're sacrificing that for that period of time. Compromise is meeting in the middle where your needs and values are still being honored. So you're still getting the need met. You're still honoring those values. Maybe not to the degree that they've been met, but they're still getting met.
Totally.
It
does. And I love this idea that a reminder that compromise is legitimately, guys, somewhere in the middle. Like, I did have to learn that compromise wasn't always exactly in the middle. Sometimes compromise leads a little closer to what he wanted or a little closer to what I wanted, but there's a little win for everybody.
100%. And this is something we talk about a lot in Revive Your Relationship, is the Venn diagram. Mm-hmm. And like where the two circles overlap, there's a lot of room in there. Like you said, there's like directly in the middle. There's like kind of on the edge, more of one circle. There's maybe more on the edge of another or towards the top or bottom, but it's still in the middle. It's not that you're not getting what you need. Because if you're not getting a healthy relationship, honestly.
Totally. So I want to point everybody to a resource around having any kind of conversation, because you guys are doing a masterclass next week. You're actually doing 3 of them next week, all around sort of how, I believe it's like the 5 steps to having any kind of conversation you need to have in your relationship.
Like anything. So this was really hard. I can be full transparency. It was really hard to make sure that we were addressing like any topic. And we wanted to make it so that you can take this formula, for lack of a better word, to any conversation: sex, politics, religion, what you want for dinner, who's going to walk the dog, like anything.
Hey, and that dinner one is bigger than the sex one in my house. Like, having to choose what's for dinner is the worst thing you can do.
100%. It's so challenging. It's so challenging. So yeah, it's called How to Start and Have a Conversation About Anything. And
I just tossed a link. And for those of you who are listening to us talking about it and they're like, I want to know when that is, I just threw a link in the comments. So that's where you guys will find it. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure they knew how to get there. So carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to teach you just how to do that. Like you will walk away from that live class feeling confident to have a conversation literally about any. And boy, oh boy, do we use it.
I'm so excited for it. And I think this is such a valuable thing. And, you know, when you and I have talked, and when I brought Kyle on, and when I was going through the challenge, it's so easy to attach this stuff to our romantic relationships. But there was so much. So currently we are expanding. We are doing some growing behind the scenes. I'll tell you all about it later. Some behind the scenes growing. I think we're back. Yeah, we're back. All right. Sorry, guys. I apologize for losing you, but we have returned.
We're back.
We're back. We're doing some growing over the next, essentially 6 months, but it will expand over the next couple of years. And I'm looking at how I talk to the people on my team about things. And there were 100% things in those scripts that I was like, oh, this is actually going to be really handy as we're doing things like performance reviews and tackling issues that came up with clients, or any of those things where we're sort of having conversations that, I will be honest, I don't love having.
100%. And, you know, when you're not the first person to say that, we've been getting messages from people saying that it's helped them communicate with their kids.
I actually did one with Colin, on last night.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do?
What were we talking? Oh, no, it was the night before last. We were talking about, he has worked really hard. I'm going to mom brag here, and I never talk about him here, but he has worked really hard over the last year because he had a financial goal in place, and I'm teaching him about, you can have anything you want, work for it. Because that's sort of how I am. And he made the money he needed to make to acquire an Apple Watch, which is what he wanted. And I didn't super love the idea of having an Apple Watch, because I thought he was going to end up with buyer's remorse. So instead of being like, no, you can't have that, I started talking him through essentially trying to get him to a place where, do you want this because you thought it was cool, decided to start working towards it, and just momentum carried you? Or is this the thing you really want right now? Turns out, not the thing you really want right now. He did, however, buy himself an Xbox yesterday, so good for him. Not bad for a 9-year-old,
Yay, Colin!
Right? But it was really in helping him get there on his own through and not saying, not so much with the I feel when you, but if we do this, this might happen. Mm-hmm. And I just use myself as an example. I remember when I and I ended up with such and such. And so I sort of used this model to kind of get him where I wanted him to go, instead of just being like, no, you can't have that.
Right.
Which makes him want it more.
100%. And that's what happens with adults too. I think we forget that we're all still little kids inside.
Totally.
And when we're told that we can't have something, or that, we rebel against that. And so really allowing the other person, whether it's a, colleague or partner or kid or whatever, to get to their own conclusion and truly be able to identify how they're feeling about it. Such a beautiful.
I love that. It's so cool. All right. So more of this will be on the masterclass that's happening at 3 different times next week across 2 days.
Yes.
So, and it's totally a free masterclass, guys. This isn't like a
100%.
I'm assuming they are also going to tell you guys about Revive Your Relationship on that masterclass, which is this amazing program they have coming out. It's sort of your next steps. But I also know the content well enough, because I've seen the slides, to tell you that it's going to be awesome and amazing and epic and really cool.
Well, because we teach masterclasses every month, and they're usually not free. And so we decided to make this month's free, and also honor the fact that we have just updated Revive Your Relationship and in there too. So we're really excited.
Awesome. I'm super excited. So I'm already signed up. You guys need to sign up. I will see you there next week. I'm in their private community already. You guys gotta get on it. It's super cool. Thank you, Rachel, for surviving our tech glitches. I don't know what was with weird tech glitches today, but I'm glad that you hung with us and was awesome and shared so much value. Thank you.
Of course, anytime. And if anybody listening, my inbox is open. PM us. We're here. We really want to help. So, don't be shy.
Yes, totally. Yeah, in this post, there is a tag to the Wright Wellness Center page. Starting there is a great place to start. Joining the masterclass, I'm guessing you'll also in the masterclass get a link to the free group. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great place to hang out and ask questions. And if you're feeling uncomfortable about asking questions, search that group, because I bet you somebody has asked a question very similar to it, and you'll feel less alone. But also you can get the answer you need without necessarily having to be like, I want to ask this question. You could just ask a follow-up on that original post, and then everybody can feel like they're getting better together.
Exactly. Group. I mean,
it's awesome.
Every person that comes in there, if they don't answer the questions, they don't get in. Like, we really want to keep it a safe space where everybody can ask these questions that we all have, because sex, mental health, relationships, like, I experienced all of those today already.
It's true. It's totally true. 100% true.
That has happened already today.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging with us through the tech issues. We will be back again next week. Next week, we're having another guest, and then we'll have a break from some guests. But next week, we're actually having Christy, who is the owner of Admin Ease, which is my virtual assistant team. So these are the people who do our stuff. I'm going to introduce you to the team. They also manage the teams. So when I get strategy clients who don't have a team in place, I send them to Admin Ease. So we're going to talk about repurposing content. So, you don't just record podcast after podcast after podcast and write blog post after blog post after blog post. I don't know anybody who did this, by the way.
And
then never, really see any result from it, because you're not A, marketing it, and B, you're just a constant production of content. And somehow when you cease production, I would feel like maybe there was like room to breathe, room to create, maybe room to launch a program. Again, not talking about anybody specifically. So, I highly encourage you to join us. If you've not yet signed up to have Betty remind you, type show in the comments. Betty will hook you up. She'll let you know we're live next week. Again, thank you, Rachel, for joining us. Thank you for having Kyle join us last week. Well, you didn't have him. I asked him, and he said yes.
I made him do it.
We voluntold him that he had to come on the show.
Exactly.
I think the day after we met, I voluntold Kyle. I'm like, so you're going to be on the show. I hadn't even launched the show yet. I was like, so you're going to be on the show, and this is what we're going to talk about.
It was the day after.
Yeah. We had known each other 24 hours.
Yeah. A little under.
Like 18 hours, maybe.
We may have clicked right away.
It may have been love at first sight.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so thank you guys. I really appreciate you bringing this stuff to the audience, because I know it's something that we all have. Oh, look, Kyle's here. I totally got distracted just now.
What did
you
he
see
say?
That happen? I switched. He said, "It was my pleasure to be here. Hi, you two."
Oh, hi, babe.
He must really like us.
He must. Wow.
I think last week I said that you probably liked me better, but I'm going to guess he likes you better. It's something I'll have to live with.
Come back to that. We'll see after our Disneyland trip.
That's true. He might not like either one of us after that. We'll be like, bye.
Oh, I love it. Oh.
He's like, I'll be in California Adventures. There's drinking there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Stay tuned for lots of Instagram stories from Disneyland starting in July.
Yeah, because we'll be there.
We'll show the instructional guide of how adults do Disneyland.
Well.
I mean, we might have to bring Colin along for one trip, but we'll do some adult-only trips, too.
He can come one time. No, I'm just kidding. He can come anytime.
To be fair, he's far more mature than I am, so you'll probably and he has feelings, too, so you'll like him. All right, guys. So I'm actually going to end the show now. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys next Thursday. Have a good rest of your day.